Hello and welcome to the Reach Out for Mental Health podcast. I'm your host, I'm Stu Whiffin. Normally, I have my co-host Kirsty here. She's currently stuck in traffic, and so she sends her apologies. And it would have been really interesting because Kirsty has chosen quite an alternative lifestyle aside from running the charity that she lives in a boat. And today's guest came into my world by listening to her talking about the fact that she lives in a van and has chosen van life, and that was what sort of hooked me into hearing about today's guest's story. And then the story went way deeper to the point where I felt that we had to reach out and get in touch with today's guest, Siobhan, aka the Retirement Rebel, and find out all about an amazing journey. And so, hello.
Hello, lovely to meet you.
It's an absolute pleasure. I always start the podcast, and I'm not gonna change it now. So I'm gonna say, what do you think of, Siobhan, when you hear the words mental health?
Sadness.
Okay.
That's I just think incredible sadness. Sadness because the individual themselves is probably struggling. Sad because no matter how much we talk about it, society still doesn't seem to get it. There are too many people who have crisis moments, who are, locked up, who aren't treated properly by the authorities because they don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
I think that is incredibly sad. As an ex-journalist, well, I'm still a journalist, but when I was working full-time as a journalist, we covered so many stories where when you scratch the surface, you realise these people are just in crisis.
Yeah.
They're doing things because they're scared and they're vulnerable and nobody's information. So yeah, to me, it's sadness.
And I think, if you look back at the sort of the tabloids and things like that back in the 80s and 90s as well, and obviously prior to that as well, actually kind of looking at somebody that was in crisis and was really struggling, that's not salacious, is it? To refer to these people as going mad, and that's what's going to shift papers. And there were some horrific headlines over the years about people that when you look back now, thankfully, like you don't sort of get press like that so much anymore now. But then again, you say that, and you look at what happened. I guess it's a lot of it's moved on to social media, but you look at like the Caroline Flack situation,
Yeah.
where she was being absolutely sort of trolled everywhere, and to the point where she felt that she had to take her life. And
But also I think with mental health, with mental illness, people, including journalists, still treat it as some kind of a weakness, some kind of a failing in the person. And even though I kind of know that, when I was at my lowest, and I was really, really low at one stage in my mid-50s, I didn't talk about it to people because I was scared they'd think I was weak and I wasn't able to cope. That I didn't talk about it. I felt as though I'd almost let myself down and let everybody else down because I wasn't coping with life. And that's sad.
did you feel like if you was to did you feel like if you was to speak to somebody at work that it could affect your role and how people viewed your capabilities?
Totally, totally. I thought it would definitely signal the end of any possible career progression, regardless of the fact that I think being old in the workplace impacted that. I think, yeah, I did. I felt that it would be a barrier to a lot of things if I admitted how low I was and how much I was struggling.
I want to pick up on that a little later, because just from hearing about some of the stuff and that you've spoken about the ageism that you experienced in the workplace, that I guess ultimately sort of led to this journey that you've been on, which is remarkable
It's brilliant, and I'm the
very
happiest I've ever
positive,
been.
and that's lovely to hear. But I'm going to take you back, and I'm going to ask you, Siobhan, to tell me, please, the first time that you considered your mental health, you thought, hang on, this maybe not be the right way to feel.
I think for many years, I haven't responded properly to situations because mentally I've been struggling from things that happened to me in my childhood. I was beaten and locked in cellars and various things by my father, who was quite a disciplinarian, and that impacted on the way I behaved all my life. And I didn't realize that until maybe I was in my 50s. So I think it was in my 50s was the first time I started thinking that problems with my mental health and problems with the way I was feeling, this overwhelming feeling of fear and not being good enough, was because of things that had happened in my childhood. And as I began to unpick that, as I've been doing this journey, I look back now and I think so many difficult situations I could have handled differently if I'd known what was going on. But I didn't know what was going on. Every time I got in a situation where I was fearful, I'd go back to those feelings I had as a child. And so my behavior was childlike. I didn't confront what was going on.
Professionally or personally or both?
Both, even professionally. You know, I could be called into an office by some senior person, and just because they were in authority and senior, more senior to me, I would just have this wanting to please and feeling fearful and just, I'm in trouble and not speaking up really properly like an adult. And then when I realized I was feeling like that, to try and be brave, I'd speak up in a way, but then that sounded like defensive and confrontational. And that's not how I wanted to come across. But I was coming across like that because I was so scared that I wasn't coping. And I used to say to my daughter, I can feel myself going into that black hole again. I was just kind of sinking into a place where I just wasn't able to cope. And that all comes from childhood and being locked in cellars and fear of the darkness, and all kinds of things have come into play. I'm throwing a lot at you there.
No, not at all. I'm sorry to hear that. That sounds like that must be so difficult. But when you started to realise that there was sort of a correlation between your behaviour traits in situations where you felt there was sort of power over you, that you would regress to, you know, a mental state back to the situations that you just said that you was in as a child. Did you sort of reach out to anybody, or did you consider speaking to like a therapist or anything like that?
I had 2 sessions of counselling, and that really did help. I had an amazing counsellor, particularly the first one I went to see, and that did help. But that was in moments of crisis, when, you know, I'd go off sick from work because I didn't know what else to do. And so I wasn't really looking at the bigger picture. I was just wanting to get through that.
Jerk.
Yeah, whatever was happening then. And it was only when I really started writing my book, and really peeling back and being totally honest for the first time about every emotion, that I sometimes I had to stop writing and just go away for a few hours and go for a walk and think, gosh, that's it. And since then, and I've been kinder on myself, life's just, honestly, it's so good. But no, I didn't talk to people properly. And then I genuinely felt suicidal in my mid-50s. So I then did go, my daughter got me, I went and got medical help. I went and saw a GP, and I had the most incredible GP. She was young, and I wasn't really telling her the whole story. I was sort of, you know, I'm okay. And she just took the time and talked to me, and she even rang me at home. You know, she was just amazing that I turned the corner. And I have to thank her for that moment in my life, I think, where I turned the corner. I did go on antidepressants, but from then on, I started to accept that this was something that was happening to me, and I couldn't really control, and I had to take her guidance. And I did, and it made a big difference. And also it made me braver when I went back to work. My last few years, I had conversations and spoke in a way and confronted things that I wouldn't have done before. She helped me have the courage to do it. You know, you're poorly, we're going to get you better, we're going to get you back on key, you know. I never would have killed myself, I don't think, because of my daughter, but I know that I had those thoughts and I was in that place, and it scared me, and she helped.
Had you had experience of anybody else in your life that had felt like that, and if you ever spoke to them?
No.
So that
No.
must have been quite a lonely feeling to have then.
It was lonely, but it was all mixed up with brothers and sisters who died, and feeling marginalized at work, and feeling bullied at work, and feeling lost in my life. So it was all part and parcel of that. So I didn't really know what was going on. And I was thinking, is this it? Is this what happens when you get to this
Yeah.
age? So I didn't really know what was going on. And I was just so lucky. I had this GP that said, no, look, take your time, take your time. Talk to me. And I'm going, oh, no, no, it's okay. It's okay. And she's going, well,
It's so strange, isn't it, that people's react, no, 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 I'm all right.
yeah. I know.
Like, even though we all know that, no, no, I'm not. But like,
Yeah.
I don't
And
want to
I'm
put anyone
here
out.
because I'm not. But she was just amazing. She really was good, and she helped me in so many ways. And yeah, and but also having gone through all that, the journey that I'm on now in my motorhome and living my life the way I'm living is so much sweeter. Because you know, one incident that will always stand out with me was walking on the cliffs in Seaford. Along there's the white cliffs, there was the sea, there was the sun kind of shining down that silvery grey, and I could see the white cliffs of the Seven Sisters, and I started crying. And I started crying because I felt happy, really, really, really. I'm going goosebumps when I talk about it, really happy. And I was able to look back and remember when I'd felt so lost. And here I was wandering along in my own time, feeling happy. And it was great.
Well, I want to talk about that journey there, and how you've just took this. I guess quite took to a lot of people quite a radical change of life. It's a change of life that excites me and is very interesting to me at the moment. And it's definitely something that I'm considering as I approach 50 years of age, and starting to kind of assess everything and look at things, and it seems very, very exciting. And hearing your story and other van lifers talk, it's yeah, and hearing some very inspiring stories. So you, correct me if I'm wrong, you lost a few close relatives in quite a close succession. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, within a few years, I'd lost a brother who was 53 of lung cancer, and then a sister who was 53 of lung
So
cancer.
young,
And it took the wind from my sails, really.
of
And I
course.
tried doing lots of physical things. My daughter came in one day and said, let's run a marathon, let's raise some money. And I went, oh, let's not. But I ended up doing my first marathon at 53 and another marathon at 55, and we raised loads of money. So we tried to put positives on bad things that had happened. But all that affected me and what was going on at work and everything. And one day I went into the loos, burst into tears, looking at myself in the mirror, and thought, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I need to find another way of living. And then over the next few years, I hatched the plan, and the idea of a motorhome, God knows where it came from. It just popped into my head. I'd never driven one, never holidayed in one, but I ended up thinking, yeah, that's it. That's perfect. And then I was thinking, but what about your flat? What about this? And I thought, get rid. And that's what I did. I got rid of my home, got rid of my possessions, bought a motorhome, said to everybody who'd listen, do you know what? I'm just going to head off. I'm going to go with the flow. My plan is to have no plan, and I'm going to find a better way of living. There's got to be a better way than this. I want to find my happy place.
What was the consensus of opinion from those that you was telling that you was going to do this?
Well, imagine it when I'm going around work saying it. They just thought I was balmy, especially as I'd been so sad for so long, really. And a lot of them knew I was struggling. And then here I was all of a sudden on top of the world, giggling, saying, I'm going, I'm going. And eventually, when I started bringing bags of my stuff and books and things into work to say, go on, take it, you can have it, they were going, oh my God, you're really going to do this, aren't you? You're really going to head off. And I said, yeah. And then my daughter was very worried. I've got a daughter, Sammy, who's 34. She said I'm her Eddie to her Safi. You know, she's always going, Mum, what are you doing now? Where are you? But she helped me a lot, and she could see that I wanted to do this. She knew that I was
Yeah.
trying to find my happy place, so she supported me, but she did think I was crazy. And we walked past the charity shops in where we were living, and there were things in the window because it took me a few weeks to clear it. And she'd be going, oh my God, Mum, is that yours?
I'm interested in that as well, in the benefits of, because I've looked a little bit and into not sort of a minimalist lifestyle, but if you're living in a van, you obviously have to be very conscious of what you have because you've got limited space to live within. Did that feel good, getting rid of stuff?
It was scary, if I'm
Yeah,
totally honest. It was scary, and it was an emotional roller coaster because I was going through all my belongings. I've got photographs that I blogged about, and I threw everything in one room and then just went through it. And there were letters from when I split with my daughter's father, all kinds of things. So it was that emotional roller coaster I was going through. And I had to speed it up in the end because I was taking so long, you know, wallowing in my moments of sadness and enjoying the moments of happiness. But it was really good and really cathartic. And I still occasionally get that butterfly feeling and think, oh, I miss that and I miss this. But on the whole, I don't. You don't need that much to live off. So no, it was good getting rid of it. And you can only have a certain weight of stuff in the motorhome
yeah.
anyhow.
And so, also, just as you was, just to go back to when you said you was just getting to the point where you had that kind of epiphany, you know, in the bathroom at work, where it was like, no, this got to change. Was there? You said that the colleagues could see that you was, you know, unhappy and was struggling. Was there support offered, both sort of personally and professionally?
No, not really. In fact, I think it was the opposite. My ability to do the job was questioned. My I was just undermined, I felt personally. I mean, there are those that will dispute that and say I was my own worst enemy. But then when you're cornered, you behave in a way that maybe sometimes I was my own worst enemy. But
Yeah.
I was an angry woman, an angry middle-aged woman who was totally lost. And that's why I wanted to become a pro-age campaigner, which I call myself now, because I think the way that the opportunities in workplaces for women, once you're 50 plus, aren't good enough. And I think we don't get our pensions till we're nearly 70 now, a lot of women. So that's accepting 15 years of not having career progression, being marginalised, being voiceless, being undermined.
Did you feel
Um,
marginalised?
Oh, definitely, definitely. And it's not good enough. You know, we need
Yeah.
to change things. So that's what I'm doing. But talking about the possessions, I also felt strongly we were going out working long hours to earn loads of money, to buy loads of stuff, to fill our homes, to say, hey, aren't we grand? We've got these big houses full of posh stuff. And yet we were so tired, we weren't connecting properly with family and friends. You know, you'd have a weekend free 2 months down the line, and you'd say to them, yeah, I can see you that weekend. And then they come to stay. And because you've had a horrible working week and you're tired, you sort of go through the motions, but you're not really connecting. And I just thought, let's have a look at it. Let's work less. Let's have less stuff. Let's need less money and spend more quality time being kind and being loving and being with our friends.
And this sounds incredibly fun and adventurous and idealistic, but the enormity to, I would imagine, 99.9% of the people that listen to this was like, you sold your home and quit your job and just completely blindly, never hollered in it, bought a camper van. Would you always advise just pursue happiness over anything?
The more I'm doing this, the more I really feel that we are getting it wrong, so wrong. From when we're very young, we're taught to measure life and our success and our happiness in material things. You know, you grow up, you go to university, or you go get a job and you buy a home and you buy cars and you buy this. And we seem to forget the happiness side of it. And that is a secondary thing. You know, you just forget your happiness for now. You've just got to work hard, and you might have to be brutal to certain members of your working environment to get on, and that's all seems to be acceptable. And I really think we should teach kindness more in schools, from primary school all the way through, because to me the biggest strength is kindness. And kind people, sometimes I felt that I was treated sometimes like I was weak because I tried to be kind and tried to be helpful to people.
Yeah, weakness shouldn't be viewed as like vulnerability, should it? It's like
No.
as something that can be taken advantage of. And Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay, well, look, tell me a little bit, Siobhan, about. I'm interested. So you sold your home, and then was you shopping around for ages to find the right motorhome? And like, tell me about it, and tell me about buying it and the enormity of all of a sudden. Because I'm presuming up until then you'd never driven anything the size of a motorhome.
No, I hadn't at all. I hadn't holidayed in one. I had stayed overnight in one a couple of times with some people when I was traveling around the world. Because when I was 49 and trying to make sense of everything, I took a gap year from work when my daughter went to uni. And I went around, packed a rucksack and went around the world on my own. And I met a couple who were only in their 20s, and they were in a motorhome, and I met up with them a couple of times, and they let me sleep in it. But other than that, never holidayed in a motorhome, never driven a motorhome. So yeah, I didn't really know what the heck I was looking for. And I used to stay up till 1 and 2 in the morning looking at motorhomes on websites and thinking, oh, I like that, like that. And all I kept thinking was, oh, I don't like the colours. I don't like the greys and the beige. And then I thought, you need to get down to the nitty gritty. But I used to drag my friends, one of my friends, Hamish, we laugh about it, because I dragged him round for 5 hours one day looking at motorhomes, and neither of us had got a clue what we wanted. But the funny thing, I narrowed down to a couple of motorhomes eventually, and one was up in Banbury and one was in Kent. And I went to see the one in Banbury, and the moment I walked into Dora the Explorer, I just knew.
I take it that's the name of your camper.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I just say it like everybody knows, but yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Dora the Explorer. She's only 2 berth, all to trail tribute, but she's got a bathroom, toilet, sink, kitchen area, fridge, freezer, microwave, and all my cons really, central heating. And there's 2 bench seats down, and you just pull those out, and the cushion drops down behind. That's the width of a single bed, so you can have 2 single beds, or put it all together right across, and then it's a mega bed, which I do when my daughter comes to stay, and we just sort of sit in it and chill.
Lovely, lovely. Tell me about the effect it had and how long that effect took from literally getting in the driver's seat and traveling. And how quickly did you start to feel that you improved, your well-being was improving?
Well, I went on a bit of a journey, because I got to grips fairly quickly with the first few weeks of driving it. Some of my friends who I've known since I was 18, they joined me, and we went to the lakes and the Yorkshire Dales with all the little narrow roads, and there was lots of squealing and sharp intakes of breaths and things, and scratching of the side of it with trees, and just thinking, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I got to grips with that, and filling the water and doing various things. But mentally, I hadn't got to grips with myself. So I drove all the way up to Scotland, and
On your own?
yeah, on my own by then, yeah. And I went to the edge of a lock, because I used to say when I was in a fuzz, I used to say, oh God, I could just go to the edge of a lock and scream and get it all out. So I literally thought to myself one day, why don't you do that? So I drove all the way up to Aviemore, found this place called Loch Morlich, and parked in the trees next to an area where there's like a beach bit. And then one night I just walked out after midnight round, sort of, you had to go an inlet round to the other side. And I just let it out. I just screamed and shouted. I had the conversations I would have had with my dad. I had the conversations I would have had with senior people at work. I grieved my mum, who died 6 months before I started this, and my sister and my brother. And it literally was out loud. It was like, sounds very melodramatic, but it was. And then I screamed and shouted, and I was on my knees. And then I just remember this kind of calmness came over me. Really, a real, wasn't happiness. I can only describe it as a kind of calmness, peace. And I just thought to myself, that's it. That's it now.
You'd exercised everything that had to come out.
Use it as fire in your belly now and go forward. I didn't know where I was going forward to. And as I drove out of Scotland, I saw the most amazing double rainbow. And I had to pull over, and I write about this in my book, Retirement Rebel. I had to pull over and cry, because it seemed like a sign to me that this was all the start and the beginning.
Sure.
Of something really wonderful. And it has been.
And tell me about, like, you sound like you're comfortable being on your own. You mentioned that you backpacked alone at 49 around the world.
Yeah.
So have you always sort of been at ease with being on your own?
No, I don't think I have really. My mum always was. So I think the older I'm getting, the more I'm getting like my mother. I was known as Champagne Siobhan. I was the one that always had my house full of people and parties and any excuse. I'd have loads of people around me. And I'm one of 8 children. So I'm from a big family with nieces and nephews. And I'm the one that's always got people together, you know, for an annual event and things. So I think I've always just thought I needed lots and lots of people. But the more I've done this, the more I feel I was really lonely. By the time I was in crisis point, I was really lonely. And now I don't feel lonely. I choose to be alone. I choose to be alone quite a lot, but I don't feel lonely. I don't think I'm wired like other people, maybe, but I love it. I love those moments where I'm on my own and I'm just suddenly listening to the birds or watching the clouds or just doing nothing, just living in the moment. I don't get lonely. I allow myself to enjoy that moment.
Are you a confident person?
I am now. Before, I sounded confident. I think that's been one of the problems. I've sounded confident, but inside I've been screaming for so many years and not being confident and not stood up for myself when I should have done and let people speak to me and treat me in a way that, when I look back, it's just been terrible. But now I have found through doing this, my inner voice. So when I say yes, I mean yes. And when I say no, I mean no. And I've certainly found my inner warrior. When I was in the Outer Hebrides earlier this year, I was with an Australian woman I met for a few days. And I ran to the top of the hill and don't know what made me do it. And I put my arms out and thankfully she took amazing photographs. And I'm there screaming, just going, I'm back, I'm back. I told you I'd be back. I'm a warrior. And every time I go to the mountains now, I went to Ireland, the top of cliffs, I've got my friends doing it. We just scream, warrior! And I feel so strong. So yeah, I feel confident now. I found my voice and my warrior and I feel confident.
And you found your pen as well.
My what?
Your pen. I want to know all about your book.
Oh God. I was thinking, did I lose a
pen? So tell us all about writing a book.
Well, I always had the idea that I wanted to write a book basically to help other women, genuinely. Going from, because I was broken and now I'm in the happiest I've ever been. And I wanted to as I began to realize there was another way of living, another way of feeling, and it's okay. I thought, I want to write about this. And I was going to call it Ageless, Fearless Women, You Can Do It Too. And then luckily for me, a journalist from The Guardian spotted my Instagram and liked what she saw and said, look, we've got this column starting out over 60. Can I write something about you? And she did do, and over 900,000 people read that article worldwide in the first week. And I just submitted a proposal for my book to several publishers. Some said no, but this one was saying, well, we'll consider it. So when I got the email from the journalist saying, wow, this number of people have read, I just sent that to the publishers and said, oh, you might be interested in this.
Yeah.
And they said, then they said they wanted to publish my book. That was Vertebrate Publishing. And they're not a particularly big publishing company, but they're award winning and they're an amazing team. And they've believed in me all the way through, which meant a lot to me as well. And
so tell me a little bit about the response you've had from people since the book's come out.
It's been phenomenal. It's way exceeded my expectations. I've had so many women writing to me and saying that what I've written resonates with them. They've been in that place. Some of them are in that place. And a lot of them want to repurpose their lives. They're getting that empty nest where the children have grown up, or they're looking after elderly relatives, or they feel unimportant in work. They feel marginalized as well. And so they themselves are using my book to inspire them to move on with their life. And that fills my heart, absolutely fills my heart. I was with some brothers and sisters yesterday because sadly I went to a family funeral. And as I was there, I looked at my phone and I got another message from somebody saying, "You are my inspiration." And I showed it to them. I said, "Look, I get them like this every day." And they rolled their eyes. No, but they were proud of me.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Siobhan, tell me about what day-to-day life is for you now.
Well, there is no ordinary day. There is no routine for me. I've got bookings for things like literary festivals or talking at places to women's institutes all over the country. And then when I get a booking in, I then think, oh, where's that in the country? Where haven't I been? And I start Googling the area. And then I start looking for little campsites because I stay on the smaller campsites that only have 5 or 6. I don't wild camp on my own, but I stay on the small ones. And then I just explore. And that's why I call my motorhome Dora the Explorer, because I literally pack rucksacks, make myself a flask of coffee, make a few sarnies, and just start walking and think, what is there to see? And that's what I do. I give talks, I do podcasts, I'm writing another book, hopefully. And that's it, really. That's my day. And I go and see family and friends when I can. I've got the freedom to just go and see friends and spend quality time with them, not sort of go for a quick arrive really late on the Friday and have to leave really late on the Sunday and be really shattered.
Yeah.
I can have quality time with them.
Oh, that's wonderful. Siobhan, if anyone's been listening to this has been affected by anything that you've said and has felt inspired or or a connection with what you've been saying, what would you, if you had to sort of give them some advice of any way, shape or form, what would you suggest?
Talk to people, tell people genuinely how you're feeling. And I think older women in the workplace, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be that little pebble that goes in the water and it all goes out, is get people talking. And women are using my book now in book groups. And that really fills my heart, because they're going to be talking about the book, but they're also going to be talking about the issue of ageism and being lost and feeling marginalized and feeling voiceless. And we have a voice. We've not just found our voice, we've always had a voice, but we're now going to be speaking up and saying ageism is a big problem and it's not good enough. We want to live, we want to have adventures when we're older. And there is a different way of living. So I would say to them, talk to people and don't be afraid. Because there are other people out there, a lot of other people out there feeling the same way as you, and you can support each other. And I wished I'd known that earlier.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And it's not a weakness, it's not a failure as well.
Not at all, not at all. Siobhan, if people, which I'm sure they will after hearing this, want to read your book, where can they get it?
Yay! Well, they can order it from Amazon. They can also get it in independent bookshops, and they can order it from WH Smith's and from WH Smith and Waterstones as well. They can get it. But if they go on my website, Siobhan Shuvoff, Shuvon Shuvoff, because in Yorkshire we say Shuvoff, and I'm from Yorkshire. So siobhanshuvoff.co.uk. then they'll be able to find me there. There's links to my Instagram and my Twitter and my LinkedIn, so they can contact me through that and find how to buy my book.
Wonderful. And if you say that you speak at lots of different sort of literary events and things like that, do you always put them sort of events up on your socials as well, if people are interested in coming to meet you and to hear you speak?
Yes, I love meeting people. I absolutely love meeting people and chatting to them and hearing their stories as well. So yeah, they can contact me through that and direct message me. And also if they want me to come and talk and give my inspirational talks, I'd love to.
Wonderful. And the website address was?
siobhanshuvoff.co.uk.
Wonderful. Siobhan, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for giving up your time today. I'm going to press stop. Don't go anywhere.